practices. And Paul is showing up. Paul and Barnabas is like, come on. Okay, here we go. And certain men came down from Judea, taught the brethren, and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, you cannot be saved. They're putting all this stuff on the new converts, the Gentile converts, that you have to take on Jewish law, Jewish custom in order to be saved. And this kind of tripped out Paul and Barnabas, and they came down and had a dissension and disputation with them. And so Paul and Barnabas went to go straighten things up. And let's see here. And when they were, in verse 4, and when they were come to Jerusalem, they were received of the church and of the apostles and the elders, and they declared all things that God had done with them. But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees, which believed. So these were Pharisees. We're always ragging on the Pharisees, but these are Pharisees. These were very learned men in the Jewish customs and religions and laws, and these are Pharisees which believed. And they were saying that it was needful to be circumcised, and commanded them to keep the law of Moses. And now this is Peter. Peter rose up, the Bible said, and he said, and God, which knoweth the hearts, bear them witness, giving them the Holy Ghost, talking about the Gentiles, even as he did unto us, and put no difference between us and them, purifying their hearts by faith. Now check this out. Now verse 10, we're talking about yokes, right? Jesus said his yoke is easy. Now this is the way Peter is responding to these Pharisees who believe, who are telling us that the Gentiles need to take on the laws of Moses and the Jewish customs. This is Acts 15, verse 10. This is Peter talking. Now therefore, why tempt ye God to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? Peter is just telling it like it is, and he's using the words of Jesus. Jesus said that his yoke was easy, right? And the burdens would be light. And that we would find rest with the yoke of Jesus. And these guys, these religious folks, are trying to put their religious traditions and saying you can't be saved unless you do what we tell you to do. And what Peter is saying, why are you putting this yoke on them when Jesus gave them a yoke that was light, a yoke and burdens that were easy? He's saying this yoke that you're trying to put on the neck of these Gentiles that are being converted is a yoke that your ancestors couldn't bear, is a yoke that we couldn't bear. That's why we've embraced the teachings and the reality of Jesus, because the burden is light, it's easy. It's not about us. It's not about the laws. It's not about all these things that we have to do. It's just the reality of the sacrifice of Jesus, that he took on the injury without resentment, and has presented us with a yoke that we are able to bear, a yoke that we will find rest carrying, the yoke of Jesus. And simply that's what we want to see today is that it's not about the religious traditions. It's not about all the rules and regulations. There's a freedom in accepting Jesus. There's a freedom in walking in the reality of Jesus, that we are made well in the eyes of God without having to have done anything except realize Jesus. And that's where our peace is. That's the good news. And so because today we take people, we condemn people even before they come to Jesus. And that's not even our call. No, you're not right. You're not right. Homosexual, you're not right. Drug addict, you're not right. All these folks, all these people we've determined aren't right with Jesus. And the reality is, if they're not right, we're not right, even if our issue is not what their issue is. We do need to recognize that. It's not our call. And so we put on them, the traditions that we have embraced, that we believe, that we understand. And recognize that's our burden. That's the burden that we ourselves cannot even bear. When we try to put a tougher burden on someone other than simply receiving what Jesus did and you are right in the eyes of God, no matter what your life or lifestyle is, when we try to tell them they're not okay, we're not okay. Because there's something that we're not doing. Peter said this is a yoke that you or your fathers were not able to bear. So we need to understand now, all these Pharisees that believed, they were trying to get folks circumcised. Now they were circumcised, and their parents, their fathers, their forefathers were circumcised as well according to the law. Now they're trying to get these Gentile converts to Christianity circumcised. And now Peter is responding that you're trying to put a yoke on them that even your fathers and you and me, we're not able to bear. So what I want you to see here is that they're trying to get these folks circumcised. They were circumcised, but Peter is saying the same yoke you're trying to put on them, you couldn't handle yourself. So evidently the issue isn't circumcision, because they were circumcised. The issue is the law. No one could follow the law. No one is well. And when you try to take a piece of the law and apply it to someone else's life, and you recognize that you have done this that you're trying to apply to someone else to make them do, basically what you're doing is you have taken on the law for yourself and you are condemned. You are no longer functioning under the umbrella of Jesus, of the righteousness of Jesus. You are now walking in establishing your own righteousness, and it's not possible. So now you're condemned. I shared this with somebody so many years ago that I'm not in this thing. You know, I don't believe that we have to worry about all these things that we're supposed to do or we're not supposed to do it. And the response that I got from an elderly Christian was, well, why don't you just go out and do everything? Because I don't want to. Because I love God, or I desire to love God, or I'm falling more and more in love with God, and my desire is to please God, not because I can't get away with doing what I want to do, but because my desire is to do what the Father desires me to do. I have children. I don't want my children to simply do what I want them to do because they're scared to death of me. Although if that's what it takes, you know, that's what it takes. But I want them to do what I want them to do simply because they love me and they want to please me, because they know that I love them, and whatever my desires are for them to do and to be is for their best benefit because of my love for them. So even when they don't understand why they need to do what I've asked them to do, they need to understand that I love them so much that I would never have them do something that was detrimental to their lives or was unfair to their lives or simply to bring their lives misery and pain. But anything that I would require them to do or desire them to do would be for their best benefit because I love them so. And that's the relationship we need to come into God. So, oh, you can't do this, you can't be that. All these things we're throwing out there, that's not the yoke of Jesus. That's the yoke of the Pharisee. We need to hear this. The yoke of Jesus is easy, and the burden's a lot. A lot of times you find people caught up in lifestyles or caught up doing things that they shouldn't be doing. It's because there are other issues weighing on them, other burdens that they've been carrying around. Some of them even from childhood, some of them from things they experienced as children that they've drug around with them all of their life, and they're suffering. And Jesus is saying, come to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, because my yoke is easy. But so you have people that are trying to embrace Jesus or in the stages of embracing Jesus, and we're saying, you're not right because you're still doing this. You're not right because you've embraced this or that. And what we've done is that same Pharisaical way they did back in Peter's day. They've put on a yoke that they couldn't even handle and their fathers couldn't handle. So we need to understand that for sure. There are a lot of folks out there living lifestyles that we may be totally opposed to and determine that they're not well or they're not saved, but that's not our call. That's what the Pharisees did. You can't be saved unless you do all these things. How are we today like those Pharisees that believe, trying to get people to understand that if they don't do it the way that I see that it's supposed to be, that you're not saved? That's that same way these Pharisees were functioning back in the book of Acts, the 15th chapter. Understand that, the 5th verse. Look it up for yourself. Gospel message is the good news. We've been suffering for so long. Stuff that we've gone through, stuff that we've lived through, stuff that we've experienced all through life. And it's manifested in certain ways. Sometimes lifestyle choices, destructive or not, situations that we shouldn't be. I look at people that are locked up, especially the children that I deal with at juvenile, and they're doing things that are destroying their lives. And they don't even understand. I spend the first 20 minutes talking to young people, having to express to them why they're not okay. They don't see it. They've been messed up so long. So we need to recognize that the burdens that we're dragging around, the yokes that are so heavy, Jesus' desire was to heal the broken hearts, right? Heal them that are bruised. Open the blind eyes. Preach deliverance to the captives, right? So we find ourselves in so much not really functioning in the ministry of Jesus as far as ministering wellness and peace. But we find ourselves in the role of the Pharisee, even the believing Pharisees, administering judgment and condemnation. And I'm telling you, the enemy of God, Satan, the devil, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, that his ministry is condemnation. His ministry is judgment. And we need to understand the condemnation that the enemy gives folks, especially believers especially, is that when you mess up, it's like, oh, see, I knew it, you're going to mess up. The condemnation that the enemy gives believers is sometimes true.